pleasure to serve under your chairmanship. A pleasure to follow the honourable gentleman, the member for East Lothian, his usual thoughtful speech. And thank again my honourable friend, the member for Berwickshire, Roxburgh and Selkirk, for bringing this debate to Westminster Hall. Mr Betts, I remember the conversation back in September 2014. The SNP had produced their blueprint for an independent Scotland. It was a white paper, they claimed, but in fact, as it has transpired, it was a work of pure fiction. Events have proven that beyond doubt. And on page 339 of that document, there was a timeline for independence, and it put Independence Day as the March of 2016. That's a total of 560 days from the date of the referendum to the date of independence. 560 days to set up an entirely new country from scratch. This time frame would include all the negotiations around how Scotland would withdraw from and have a future relationship with the rest of the United Kingdom. And how extraordinary on reflection those dates and numbers now seem, and how ridiculous, particularly in the light of what has transpired in relation to Brexit. But today's debate is about the establishment of the devolved Scottish security system. The Scotland Act devolved those powers, passed into law the 23rd of March 2016. That Act of Parliament delivered on the promise made to the Scottish people about devolving more power to our Parliament. It fulfilled the commitments of the Smith Commission, to which all the parties in Scotland contributed and agreed. And the noble Lord Smith of Kelvin has confirmed himself that all the commitments made in the Commission's report have been delivered. So those powers should have been transferred in relation to social security to the Scottish Government on the 1st of April 2020. But, Mr Betts, the SNP, the truth is, the SNP won't touch them. It's going to cost over £308 million. £308 million to set up Social Security Scotland. The SNP claimed just 5 years ago that it would cost £200 million to set up the new Scotland that they were falsely promising the people of Scotland. And in February, the Cabinet Secretary for Social Security announced that the Scottish Government wouldn't be in a position to introduce or accept these devolved powers and own them until at least 2024. Yes.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend for giving way. And he's right that having had these powers, the Scottish Government have not touched them. Therefore, is the nub of this issue quite clearly this, that despite having the powers, the Scottish Government do not want to use them because their only desire is to have the constitutional change of independence. And that means using any mechanism at their disposal to attack the UK Government, to bash Westminster, to use the politics of grievance rather than come up with solutions to help people.
My honourable friend is correct, Mr Betts. There is no issue that is beyond the SNP powers to politicise and to use for their own nationalist agenda. And clearly these things are more complex than they seem. And I accept that. And I don't really want the SNP taking these powers and using them if they can't handle them. Because we're talking about the lives of the most vulnerable people in Scotland. And they deserve to be protected from any possible incompetence on the part of the SNP. The SNP track record on IT systems alone, Mr Betts, is a horror story. The farm payments fiasco is a warning.
Problems that could be faced by his constituents if this system is not delivered effectively. The honourable member for Stirling, to his credit, has been a critic of this government with regards to universal credit. So does he not think it a tad ironic that he would be speaking about the potential incompetence of a Scottish government which is delivering a safe system when his government has presided over the shambles and poverty deriding situation with universal credit and personal independence payments?
The honourable gentleman is someone whom I respect, but we're talking about the Scottish Government's willingness to accept powers that have been devolved to it, and their unwillingness to touch those powers speaks volumes of them. Now, instead of 2020, they're now going to take until 2024. That's more than 3,000 days' notice. 6 times the amount of days the SNP told us that they could set up the new Scotland that they promised the Scottish people in 2014. This, Mr Betts, is the sad state of affairs of the SNP. The fact is They don't really want to have to handle these powers because they're difficult powers to handle. Welfare and benefits are expensive, they're complex. They need politicians to be grown up and to make difficult decisions. They need politicians to show leadership. So let's be clear. The next time we hear SNP politicians in this place or elsewhere deriding welfare reform or bemoaning a decision that has been taken, in their view, disadvantageously for their constituents, they will be complicit. They could have set up a social security system. They could have grasped the nettle and dealt with this. But through either political cowardice or sheer incompetence on the part of the SNP government, they have failed this challenge. The people of Scotland are sick and tired of the SNP and their excuses. Devolution works. The powers are there. Mr. Betts, it is simply the nationalists who, through their willful negligence, are leaving Scotland to stand